Okay, we're live.
All right, well then I'll get started. So thank you so much everyone for coming. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Jenn Kaplan. I'm an attorney in Seattle. I practice primarily criminal defense at a small firm. Most of our firm's work is federal crimes, but we also do other general criminal defense. And then I have a small docket of political cases as well. Since I've graduated law school, I've been working on representing activists who have confrontations with law enforcement officers. And that's the real love of my life and my favorite thing to do, no offense. So before I get started, I thought I would ask all of you why you're here and what your interest in knowing your rights is, so that I can try to tailor my talk more to your interests.
Start on one end or the other?
Well, my name is Ryan, and I'm kind of interested in getting into political science. I'm trying to hear what everyone is doing here, and I grew up in a very lawful household. Like always trying to get how can we use the law to our advantage, basically. Both my parents have the law. It's basically you have a major power to protect yourself and so I mean, with both of those, kind of how I was raised, I really want to know as much as law as I can. I'm thinking about taking any law class that's here in Evergreen. Though it's not my focus, I do believe it's something that you just need to know.
Great.
As I mentioned to you a bit ago, I'm the managing director of an organization, Perilous Global Commons, and on our website we have a legal, it's not really legal advice, that's a bad word. It's a legal reference section, how's that? So that's sort of what drew me here, is what things I might pick up on that might lead me to other sources.
I'm interested because I find that people who not knowing their rights kind of holds them back from taking action that they might otherwise take. And I think having a stronger grasp on my rights is something that I can pass on to other people.
Yeah, just generally understanding what kind of powers you do have in those situations and how to properly react is always a good thing to know.
Hi, my name is John Spath. I'm a paralegal and an investigatory photojournalist who doesn't have any friends. That's okay. But some of the people, and I get static from every segment of the political and social spectrum that have threatened me, they're not the only ones. There have been some of your clients, associates, certain, not tarring the whole group, but certain anarchist elements. So I guess what I'm hoping to hear a little bit is, I know what my rights are. I'm an expert in this area. But translating that into not being assaulted on the street because you're a photojournalist taking pictures of people committing crimes in public on the street, or having the authorities arrest you and prosecute you for taking pictures in a hallway in the courthouse and so forth is a little challenging. I can read, but translating from that into action by, especially our law enforcement officers, is a little frustrating. And of course, when they don't get it right, how can I expect the young, more radical elements of the anarchists to get it right? So that's why I'm here.
My name is Darius. I suppose I'm not an unbiased observer. I'm here with Jen. But I've been involved in activism, primarily animal rights activism, for quite a long time now. And I've seen time and time again where simply because you have a right that's enshrined in the Bill of Rights, that doesn't mean that on the street it's going to be upheld. You know, rights, knowing your rights isn't just for people who are involved in civil disobedience or sort of patently illegal activities, people who are holding perfectly legal protests, handing out literature, you know, any of the above need to know their rights as well, because if you don't, law enforcement officers will just steamroll you, just not have to deal with you because they don't like what you're saying and they'd rather you go away, et cetera, et cetera. So knowing your rights is a crucial tool for activists of any stripe.
So the purpose of my talk is to give you the rights that you need to know what forms of activism you can legally engage in, and especially since I'm a lawyer, to help you act in ways that will minimize your risk of exposure in the criminal justice system. I always come at these cases, well, usually after the fact, after there's already been a protest, after someone's been arrested and they've said something or done something that they didn't have to do or shouldn't have done that's caused them a lot of harm, and I just go, gosh, if only you wouldn't have said that to the cops, this case would be so much easier, why did you do that? And so the perspective I'm bringing this talk to you from is trying to teach you the best ways to go about doing things like going to a protest or leafleting or having a conversation with a cop in whatever context that will ultimately prevent you from having a criminal record. I know that sometimes that's at odds with what you want to do on the street. Sometimes you're planning to get arrested out of civil disobedience. Sometimes the cops just tell you to do something and they threaten to arrest you if you don't and you're in the middle of something. It's not really how things were planning. You were planning on having things going, and so you can take this talk with the grain of salt of knowing that my perspective is just to try to prevent you from having a criminal record. My talk is general. It's based on federal principles and also a little bit on Washington state law. I'm not licensed in Oregon, so if you have Oregon questions, I'm afraid I don't know that I'll be able to answer them. And if you have any questions during the talk, please do feel free to interrupt me. I love addressing questions as they come up. And now I'm going to pick on Darius a little bit because I know that he has a good temperament and he'll let me do it. When I do these talks, I really enjoy doing role plays to give people an opportunity to have a glimpse of what happens when you have a confrontation with a police officer, how things can go right if you make the right choices, or how they can go wrong if you make the wrong choices. And that's something that's true every bit as much in the garden variety criminal sense. If you're accused of shoplifting or assaulting someone on the street or something like that, as it is if you're arrested or suspected of a crime in a criminal context or in a political context. And so with that, I will apprehend Darius, who I see browsing very suspiciously in American Apparel. Son, can you come along with me, please?
Why? What's going on?
Just come along with me. I'm going to bring you into this room, and you and I are going to have a talk.
But what's going on?
Why don't you have a seat? Son, do you know why I brought you back here?
No, I wasn't doing anything. I was just about to leave the store.
You're just about to leave the store?
I wasn't, yeah.
You're just going to walk out of the store right now?
Well, I was looking at the,
Yeah, you were going to walk out of the store with a backpack in your shirt, with a shirt in your backpack?
I was gonna pay for it. I was looking at the shirts and I liked that shirt, and then I wanted to look at some jackets too, so I was gonna just pay for the shirt.
You were going to leave, but you were going to go look at jackets?
I was gonna look at the jackets before I left, and then I was gonna pay for the shirt, and then I was gonna leave.
Son, why don't you cut the crap with me and just tell me what's really going on?
Nothing. I just wanted to get my shirt.
Look, you seem like a nice kid, and I'm sure you don't make a habit of this, and I don't want to see you get in trouble.
I don't want to get, I can pay for the shirt, I have cash on me, I can just pay for the shirt right now.
Look, here's the problem though. You're a good kid and I want to help you out, but you know, if I go back to my boss and I say, well, he had a shirt in his backpack, but he told me this story about how he was gonna pay for it even though he was just gonna leave, but he wanted to look at the jackets first, what do you think my boss would say to me?
I don't know.
Do you think that my boss would believe that story?
I don't know.
Look, I want to help you out here, so I'm going to give you two options. Option one is the option that helps you out, and it helps me out. Option two is if we have to do this the hard way. Option one is I'm just going to take a copy of your driver's license, and I'm going to have you sign this form here, and then I'm going to let you go home. If you don't want to do that, then we can call the police, they can bring you down to the
I mean,
precinct.
you definitely don't need to call the police. You don't need that.
Alright, you're sure? Then let's go ahead, I'll just have you sign this form
So,
here.
I mean, I can just sign it and go home.
Yeah, you can just sign this form, you go home right now. If you don't sign it, I'm just gonna have to call the cops and have them bring you down to the precinct.
Okay, yeah, I'll sign it.
What do you think?
You guys are great. You gotta be in pictures.
Did Darius do the right thing?
No.
Did he do the right thing at any point in this entire series?
No.
What did he do wrong?
He should have told you that he wanted to talk to his attorney before he said anything to you.
Mm-hmm. Darius said all kinds of stuff. He told me about 3 different stories. He was gonna leave, but oh no, I was gonna pay, I was gonna look at some jackets. When you do that, you're creating evidence that can be used against you, that you're not honest. And he also admitted what he did, and then he signed a form without even reading it. He has no idea what it said. In real life, it would probably say, I admit that I shoplifted in the dollar amount of whatever the merchandise is worth. And it would also say, I agree that signing this form will not preclude me from having criminal charges brought against me for this action. So basically, by signing that form, he would have signed a confession. Not good, Darius. Should we give him another chance?
Yeah, I think he needs a second chance.
Okay. Act 2 is Darius is an anarchist, and there was a crime that was recently committed, and he's a suspect. And I've brought him down to the police station for a little interrogation. Darius, hi.
Hi.
Officer Schultz, how's it going?
Okay, I don't know why I'm here. I can do anything.
All right, well, we're going to get to that. First thing I want to do is explain your rights to you before you say anything, all right?
I mean, for what? I didn't do anything.
All right, well, before you say anything, let me just read you your rights. You have the right to remain silent. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, are you going to tell me why I'm here?
Calm down, hold on. You have the right to remain silent. You got that one?
Yeah.
Okay, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
You have the right to an attorney present with you during questioning.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford an attorney, one is going to be appointed for you by the court at no cost. You got all that?
Sure.
All right, you ready to talk with me now?
I mean, I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything. All right, well, I'm just gonna kick it to you straight. We believe that you've committed a crime.
Well, I haven't.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea.
Well, we suspect that you were involved in the police window station that was broken.
I mean, I wasn't even in town that day. I was in Issaquah with my parents
On what day?
on whatever day that happened.
Look, we've already talked to someone who has admitted that who confessed that you two did this together.
I don't know anything about it.
Do you know someone named Jenn Kaplan?
No.
No? You're positive?
Yeah.
You definitely don't know anyone named Jenn Kaplan.
No.
Well, Could you tell me who's in the right hand of this photograph?
It's me.
Mm-hmm. Would you care to tell me who's on the left side of this photograph?
I don't know.
I'll stop him there. How do you do?
You did lousy.
Yeah, I think we would give him an F for this performance. Any idea what he should have done instead?
Not like I want to see my lawyer and then just don't talk, don't answer any questions at all.
Yeah. I told him all of his rights, and that will usually happen to you when you have a confrontation with a police officer. They will tell you exactly what your rights are, and the reason they tell you is because if you don't do those things, then you're probably going to get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. A lot of people ignore that advice anyway. So that was kind of two worst case scenarios. Yeah.
Well, there's one thing, you're kind of being very optimistic, you know, like the presumption that you haven't stated though is that the cop's honest. And like he sounded very nervous, and the most commonly committed felony in America today, Scott Hughes could tell you about this, is police officers lying under oath either on the witness stand or in the reports. So the police officer is likely to say, oh, the suspect was very nervous.
Sure.
And of course the jury hears that and they're going to go, well, you know, he must be guilty, you know, if he was all nervous. I mean, and they're gonna put the spin in there every time. So anything you say to the police officer gives them an opportunity to put a spin on it. You can't win. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. What I was just about to get to was exactly the point that you were about to make. Yes, you're free to go. Yes, you're no longer being detained. Thank you, Darius. So Darius just gave us the worst possible scenario, and I'll give you guys an opportunity at the end of the talk to see if you can do any better than Darius. I want to get into your specific legal rights, but before I do that, I just want to tell you kind of 3 principles that will be the guiding principles for this talk. And the first one is what you just said, which is cops are not your friends. They don't like you, they're not interested in helping you. Chances are they're going to be dishonest, either with you or with the courts or with the prosecutor at some point. And you should not do anything that's going to help them build a case against you. The second principle is that you have to learn to embrace delayed gratification. A lot of times...
Yeah, I didn't hear you. Delayed what?
Delayed gratification.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times, if you try to stand up for your rights, it might create some degree of hassle or inconvenience for you. For example, Darius didn't really want to sign the form that said, I shoplifted in the amount of whatever, and I agree that I'm not going to have that I could still have criminal charges brought against him. But I told him, if you sign this form, you go home now. If not, you go to the police precinct tonight. And so you might end up spending a little time getting processed or being detained pending the investigation or something like that. But ultimately, signing a confession is not a good idea, and the likelihood that you're going to be spending more time in jail later on if you do the convenient thing is pretty good. And so learn to embrace the fact that sometimes this is going to be uncomfortable, and sometimes you're going to be tempted to take the easy way out, but it's not going to help you in the long run. And police know that it's uncomfortable for you to assert your rights. They're definitely in a position of power. Everything about a confrontation with a police officer lends itself to them taking advantage of your rights. And I think it's really beneficial to do things to try to make yourself less intimidated of their power. That could mean different things to different people. It could be doing a refresher, like watching a Know Your Rights talk online before you go to a protest. Or it could be sitting in the car or looking in the mirror and saying things like, I do not consent to a search, over and over until you feel really confident saying it. I just recently watched a TED Talk, and it was about your body posture and how even things like how you stand can make you feel more or less powerful. And so if you feel like you'll be better able to stand up to a cop who's trying to violate your rights by just taking a couple minutes before you go out into a risky situation and standing in what you feel is like an aggressive or powerful posture, if that's what helps you get through these things, then do them, because you could really, as Darius just did, harm yourself quite a bit if you don't feel comfortable asserting your rights. And the third principle guiding this talk is that there are some key phrases that you can use that will really go a long way to helping you out if you're in a situation involving a confrontation with a cop. Does anyone have any idea what those phrases might be?
That would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. There's 3 phrases that I'm thinking of that have legal significance that you would want to know in order to protect yourself in a situation involving a police officer.
I'd like to talk to my attorney before I say anything further.
Okay, you got the first one. I wish to remain silent and speak to an attorney. The second one, am I free to leave or am I being detained? And the last one is, I do not consent to a search. So we'll see how those work in order now. So probably the most important right you have when it comes to your interactions with a police officer is the Fifth Amendment. And the Fifth Amendment protects a lot of things. It protects your right to due process of law, your right not to be charged twice for the same crime, your right to be indicted by a grand jury if you're accused of a crime in the federal system, and most importantly, it's your right not to be a witness against yourself, also known as the right to remain silent. Use it. I'll write a phrase on the board that I think really encapsulates my sentiments with respect to the Fifth Amendment.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
It's just a short, quick story, but I think it'd be worth for your audience hearing it. Guy goes to an attorney, woman, good attorney. She's a defense attorney. His name's Ralph. And as they talk, and she used to take the case, she says, now Ralph, I want to tell you one thing. That's bottom line. You see that fish? Had a big swordfish mounted on the walls. The reason that swordfish is there is because it opened its big mouth. She says, and so if you open your big mouth, that prosecutor is going to have you mounted on the wall just like that fish. Do you understand, Ralph?
That was perfect. That is probably the best explanation of why you should keep your mouth shut that I've ever heard, but I'll try to give you some stories from real cases that I've had that illustrate what a bad idea it is not to just shut the fuck up. So there's really nothing that you can say to a police officer that's going to help you if you're involved in a situation like that. If you were involved in the kind of situation that Darius was, where I bring you down to the station and start asking questions, you're probably going to trip yourself up the way he did. He said he didn't know anything about the crime, but then he said he wasn't even in town on that day. Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what day it is. You can do an enormous amount of harm in a whole lot of ways. Now, you hear about the Miranda Rights. I'm sure everyone has seen Miranda if you watch Law & Order or any cop show on TV. But I think that there's a lot of misconception about what Miranda actually stands for and how it protects you. So Miranda's not this, like, magical charm that you can use to get your case dismissed. All it means is that if police ask you questions and you answer them, but they didn't warn you first that you have the right to remain silent, then that statement can't be used against you in a jury trial. It doesn't mean that if you don't get Mirandized, you just get to go free, or that nothing you've said or done in like the course of like the whole events leading up to your arrest are admissible against you, just your answers to police questions. And even that is not 100% set in stone, because let's say you make a statement to a police officer in response to a question, and they find that it was a violation of Miranda and it can't be used against you in your trial, but then you take the stand in your trial and you say something different than what you told the cops, then the statement can still be used against you. And even if they're not admissible against you at trial, they can still be used against you in a lot of different ways. One example is I represented someone who was accused of smashing a police station window a while back. He and another person together got caught about 3 or 4 blocks away from the scene, and they just separated the two of them and asked both of them, "Son, where are you coming from? Honey, where are you coming from?" And they gave different answers. Now, those questions were asked before they got their Miranda rights.